Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
What are some cities/towns/places you believe have a pervasive sense of darkness/sadness/spiritual wasteful sense pervading it? I am from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Have lived elsewhere but have returned here. I am not the best at describing things, but to me, Vancouver has always had a hollow, non-human, sad and empty feeling. Like everyone here is under some sort of light trance which causes them to lose light in their eyes. Beyond the facade of We Have Hiking and It's Beautiful in Whistler, this place feels dead, dark. What places have you been to where this feeling has been stark? For me, it's my home, Vancouver, and I will also add Brandon, Manitoba to that list.
I lived in a small town in Japan as an English teacher. I won't name it, so I don't dox myself, but it was the most evil place I've ever been and had to live in. Everything was and still is controlled by Yakuza. Poverty is rampant. People there developed a really palpable hatred, similar to what you see in people who live in the hood. Actual violence at schools involving knife fights, and at izakayas involving drunk blue-collar workers and younger Yakuza who just wanted to rip and tear at something. It did not feel like the rest of Japan at all. Kids didn't know anything but that town's culture. Whenever they graduated, they either left town and never came back, or got stuck in the town's dysfunctional BS lifestyle. If I told a Japanese person from out of town, but who lived nearby, that I lived there, they would flip their shit. One woman demanded I move ASAP because she was worried I would be killed there. She mentioned that the people around the town feared the Yakuza there. Nobody ever wanted to visit me if they knew the place. A few Japanese college friends came and visited me, but wanted to get out after an hour because the vibe was terrible. It was like a Japanese Twin Peaks. I'm from the Pacific Northwest, so I know a thing or two about places with heavy energy that oppresses you. This little town was 100 times worse and irredeemable. Moved out of there within a year because my ultra-nationalist neighbor, who would insinuate death threats to me, tied a dog to a pole and let it freeze to death overnight. The howls still haunt me. When the school year finished, the principal received a note written in blood by a Yakuza squad that had a beef with another one and directly threatened the family members and anyone who taught their kids. I remember being so glad I was leaving that shithole and happy knowing I would never go back.
I feel this way about a certain part of western Massachusetts. It's called Pioneer Valley or something, but I'm not sure how relevant that name is. I don't mind the far western part of the state in the Berkshires as it then begins to resemble Vermont or upstate New York. But there is something about the area from Worcester to there that is a very depressing and hopeless feeling. All the cities in the area are old mill towns from the Connecticut River era, important only a long time ago. The ground is also reportedly poor to grow food there. At one point in the past, a few towns were even obliterated in order to make a reservoir, and I have heard a rather spooky interview with Michael Aquino, where he states that no planes were actually used to hit any towers on 9/11, and that the passengers were really flown to Westover Air Force Base in Springfield, Massachusetts area to be slaughtered. Overall, since living out there once upon a time, I have always hated Western Massachusetts and the messed up people there. A lot of massive old insane asylums in that area dating back to the 1800s. Northampton, Belchertown, Worcester, Grafton. Most have been torn down and replaced with condos and apartments, but do you think that kind of energy just goes away? To the east is Danvers, Fairfield, Foxborough, Metropolitan State, Taunton, Medfield, and I'm sure I'm missing a few. Then there's Fernald, Deaver, Wrentham, Gabler, and Belchertown, which were all state schools but really asylums for children and teens. I've been inside almost all these places personally when they were still standing. It's not a good vibe at all. Massachusetts is a messed up place all over. The entire northeastern US is, for that matter. For me, it's Jersey City. You have to wonder why a place reasonably close to New York City with easy access to mass transit is so undesirable to live in. The place is nothing but a collection of long abandoned urban revitalization projects and people that would rather be anywhere else. The families wish they could afford a real home in the suburbs. The young professionals wish they could live in a cool area like Hoboken or Brooklyn. But they're all just stuck there being miserable. Lots of jeets too, from what I remember. I have still never heard the terms growler or package store used outside of Western Massachusetts, and choose to believe they made them up just to be different.
Ontario brothers, I thought I was the only one. I think I have aged like 10 years extra because of this place. I also wish to say I have done a lot of research and read a lot of what North American exorcists have had to say, and many of the places people are listing here were labeled as especially satanically active, had an abnormal number of demonic possessions. So, as often, /X/bros have their intuition right on the mark, it seems.
I took this picture in Vancouver today. It's not always bad here, but I know what you mean. When I spend time away and then come back, I'm struck with how shitty I feel. I once spoke with a wise old hippie in Gambridge, British Columbia, who had nice things to say about many areas nearby. But he stated, "Vancouver sucks. It's all about yes sir, yes sir." Not a bad way to put it.
Crater Lake, Oregon. Driving up to the mountaintop one is immediately struck by the quiet and lack of life. As you get nearer the top, the trees become more gnarled and scarce until you reach the top. Park your car, and you'll see the hotel that is dead quiet, but there are people inside, employees and guests, and nobody is talking. Get a drink and walk out onto the balcony overlooking the Crater Lake, all quiet and all being watched. Stay away from there, bros. Liao is the god of the underworld in the mythology of the Klamath Native American tribe. Liao fought a great battle with the sky god Skell, which caused the eruption of Mount Mazama, creating Crater Lake. The Klamath tell many stories of the powerful spirits Lao and Skell. Liao was the spirit of the underworld who lived beneath Mount Mazama. Skell was the spirit of the sky, above world. In the beginning, the stories say that Liao was able to pass through a hole and climb to the top of Mount Mazama, where he could almost touch the stars where Skell lived. The followers of the spirits could reportedly take the form of animals such as deer, fox, and dove, and they would play together.
A lot of the towns in Pennsylvania have a weird cult Silent Hill kind of vibe, and not just the coal mining town that the movie adaptation was based on. Maybe this isn't exclusive to Pennsylvania, but a lot of the towns here feel incredibly isolated and cut off from the rest of the world, and the people are weird. Not screaming at the sky, crackhead weird, but just generally rude and keep to themselves type. It feels like the town is desperately just trying to convince you it's a real place up to date with modern culture. But in reality, it's just a bunch of hicks practicing something sinister in the darkness of the farmland. Also, the Amish population has creepy aspects to it, but that's a whole other can of worms.
I've noticed a lot of small towns in rural North Appalachia have that sort of vibe on the off chance I stumble across info about them. But that could be extended to a lot of the Midwest as well. Hence, whoever occasionally makes threads complaining that Indiana seems wrong, who I assume made this thread too.
There's a chunk of western Maryland like a line between Gapland, Thurmont, excluding Gapland itself, to just west of Hancock that's a real black hole of hateful energy for no reason. Preface. I grew up in Kentucky, lived in the Maryland area for almost a decade. Zero reason I'd be identified as an outgroup. Made the mistake of stopping for lunch on a motorcycle ride at a buffet in Thurmont once. Middle of the day on the weekend. Walk in, giant banquet hall full of church groups and various other denizens. Audibly quiets down for a second. I'm walking to my table. I'm catching way too many people staring at me out of the corner of my eyes. A waitress comes over, seems mad at me, takes my drink order. I go to get in line for food. People give me the side eye as I grab a plate and fill up. Get back to my table. There's like clusters of tables separated by half walls. I swear some people in my section get up and move to another section until I'm shockingly isolated for such a busy restaurant. Eat fast, can't get the sense of you're not welcome here out of my head. Leave a cash tip under the plate, go pay at the register, girl won't look at me as I pay. Speed walk out, get on my bike, do not look back. That might sound lame, I can't describe it properly, but Christ, at the time it shook me. There's other minor shit. Gas station clerk gave me a hard time for no reason. Guy in Hancock who patched my car tire once made what sounded like a veiled threat about me and my wife not being here after nightfall. We're both white. I swear, someone stopped in the road and waved me ahead in a deliberate attempt to get me hit by a truck once. But that's the one that sticks out in my head. And it is only this patch of state, maybe also Pennsylvania, haven't spent much time north of the border. Go further west in Maryland towards Cumberland, couldn't be friendlier. Head across the border to West Virginia or Virginia, lovely people and lovely mountains. Head east, same thing. Yeah, even the cities. I've been in places across the world where I've been the odd one out among hundreds or thousands or millions, but I never felt anything like this. I've literally avoided a mugging by the skin of my teeth, and it's still not the same feeling. It's not a particularly desperate or poor or even isolated part of the country. This set of ridges are just messed up. Sucks because it's beautiful. But when my trips take me through, I make sure to fuel up east of Frederick and not stop for anything if I can help it.
Downtown Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I've been going there 3 times a year for about a week for tabletop wargaming conventions. I play Ancients and Medieval period shit, so I do the HMGS conventions. Fall In, Cold Wars, Historicon were the big 3 near me that I could make it to. I missed 3 years because of life shit popping up during each con week. Managed to get back to Historicon this year for the first time since 2021, and the entire city is completely different. Everything's shut down. Everything's darker. Empty places. No people walking around. It's like everything is draining the people around them. It's really depressing because Lancaster was always a good time, and parts of it still are. Anything east of about Dutch Wonderland is still okay for the most part, but west of that is fucked. It's like the entire region lost its soul in just a few years. I've been going for decades, and it was a huge slap in the face.
Daytona Beach, Florida by far has to be the darkest place I've lived in my human life. The city was known back in the 90s as a big hotspot for partygoers, but now is a complete shell of itself. The outlaw biker gang in our area has a heavy hand in human trafficking in my area, kidnapping local prostitutes and transporting them through the train system that runs right next to their clubhouse. Everything from North Street to Mason Avenue is riddled with homeless drug addicts, which our police department does absolutely nothing about.
Fucking Melbourne, Australia. I swear I pick up on some sort of evil presence everywhere in this place. And the further you get away, the less you feel evil. Like it drops to 50% in nearby country towns and almost vanishes in most overseas places. Shopping malls have it the worst, and they've got these fucking secret cameras. How I know they're lying about the Bondi Junction incident. They have a horrible, horrible vibe that shopping centres do not. I'd leave this place if only I could figure out how.
Big cities are depressing. Since I started studying and practicing esotericism and magic, I remember that I had hypersensitive moments, so to speak. I had to get up and leave my house at 4 in the morning with barely 2 or no hours of sleep, and without having breakfast to be able to enter. Those states, and being able to see everything. Very bad idea, and I think I screwed up my physique a bit, and almost died of being run over several times for being offline. Well, I remember that the first time it was dark and surprising. I remember the voices, laughter, crying, and the stranded, as I call them. The cities are full of them, wandering and walking the streets, men, women, children, if you wonder what they look like. Metro 2033 is a perfect example, is how black static over time I lost my fear of both them and to death. Not because I knew there was something beyond, but because if you do not accept the void, or do not have the courage to cross the dark tunnel, you will stay stranded here, and it does not seem that it is pleasant. On the other hand, the rural areas are quiet. Very rarely you see that. And the forests, I just cried when I saw them. The exofauna is beautiful. If there is fauna here on the other side too, remember how it is, above it is below. I clarify that I am from Mexico, and I think this place, or, well, our forests are a dead zone. In that sense, I have traveled to the United States, and being there is more screwed up because you instinctively feel that there are predators outside Mexico. Instead, I suppose that for something our peoples adored death and thought that here was, so to speak, the pipeline through which all souls are recycled. Today, I no longer enter those states, but I can still see the ether of people. I suppose that to stop exercising, be depressed, and stop training, these abilities pass invoice. Guys, be careful out there. Remember how up is down. Good luck, guys.
When I lived in China, we visited a neighborhood. Odd architecture meant to look like European cities. Almost entirely empty, but not quite. We ate at a restaurant there, and it was pretty good. No idea how they stay in business. Got to be something shady, even if it's just bribes or whatever. The story I heard about most of these places is that recent economic zones are creating huge wealth disparity, but in a country where the government is still super socialist. So you have government projects where they build massive housing complexes intended for poor farmers or whatever to be modernized, but then a handful of wealthy speculators buy up all the apartments from the farmers at prices the farmers can't ignore, and then they sit waiting for the empty property to become valuable so they can sell it at a profit. It would work great if a few people did it, but when everybody does it, you end up with thousands of apartments being owned by a handful of people. Nobody ever moves in, and the place falls apart because no one lives there, ensuring that no one will ever move in. But they keep doing it because China. And somewhere, somebody looks good on paper for all the shit they're building for poor people, and somebody else looks good on paper for all the real estate they own, and whoever it is they're looking good for hasn't figured out the scam yet. Definitely going to cause a major economic kerfuffle when the shit hits the fan, as it inevitably must.
I don't buy into most of the bullshit on here at all, but I had an experience a few years back that I really can't shake. Has anybody else had something like this happen to them? Be June 2017. GF and I are moving from Connecticut to Los Angeles. Decide to donate and sell off most of our shit, load up our cars with whatever we can fit, and drive out there. A lot cheaper than shipping them and flying out. Plan is to take the northern route, I-80 to I-70 to I-15. A little under 3,000 miles door to door. Trying to get it done in 5 days, 4 nights, 10 hours a day for the first 4 days, and then 5 hours on the last day, so we could get the keys to our apartment before the leasing office closed. Leave on Monday morning. Plan to land in LA on Friday afternoon. Don't book any hotels in advance because I don't want to deal with canceling, changing reservations in case we decide to go further on one day or shorter on another, etc. Settling in to watch GF in the rear view like a hawk to make sure she doesn't drive off the road or some shit, and listen to Game of Thrones audiobooks for 45 hours straight. End of the first day, we stop at a comfy little Hampton Inn with a really good continental breakfast in Elyria, Ohio. Back on the road for day 2. Get separated at a toll booth after about 4 hours on the road. Hungry, need to piss, traffic is terrible, it's raining buckets, screw it, I'm getting off the next exit, follow me. TFW. I see the Welcome to Gary, Indiana sign. Wolf down some Taco Bell at a truck stop, terrified that a crackhead is going to smash out the back window of the car and start looting all of my worldly possessions. Back on the road. About 5 hours later, cruising down I-80 through Iowa. Nothing but corn as far as the eye can see. Decide to stop for the night. Call my GF, let her know that we'll be getting off the next exit with a sign for hotels. Few miles later, I see a sign for a Holiday Inn Express off the next exit. Exit ramp basically shoots you straight off into the middle of a cornfield. Driving through the corn for like 10 minutes. Standard county or state or whatever sign with the town name and population. Sawtelle Pop, 7,000 elevation. Can't remember. Sign gives me a chuckle. The apartment we're moving into in Los Angeles is in a neighborhood called Sawtelle. Starting to feel a weird vibration and sort of buzzing noise in the car, a little worried that it might be some kind of mechanical problem. The buzzing is getting worse and worse. Super low wavelengths, deep noise that feels like it's coming from inside your skull. GF calls me. I think my car is making a weird noise. Should we pull over? We'll check it out at the hotel. Mine's doing the same thing. Did you see that sign? We're in Sawtelle. It's not quite what I expected it to be, but at least the drive was short. Look at that thing. Gigantic power grid, substation or whatever. Size of 3 city blocks with all kinds of high voltage lines shooting off from it, branching out in every direction, through the cornfields and off towards the little town that I can now see. The substation is literally vibrating with electricity. The windows in my car are rattling. Follow the signs for the Holiday Inn, a few miles further down the road. Buzzing lessens as we get further away from the grid, but never stops completely. Pull into the hotel's parking lot and I'm immediately cursing myself for not making a reservation. The lot is absolutely packed with cars. For some reason, the Holiday Inn Express in Sawtelle, Iowa, was absolutely slammed on a random Tuesday night in the middle of June. Have to circle around to the back to find a couple of parking spots. Only 2 spots left in the entire parking lot, right next to one another. Retrospectively pretty weird, but at the time I was just relieved to find a place to park. Leave our bags in the car, expecting the clerk to tell us there are no vacancies. Can still feel the substation vibrating in my skull, but I'm getting accustomed to it. Standard-looking Holiday Inn Express, PIC-related, from the outside, just in the middle of a cornfield. Step inside. Absurdly low ceiling, like 6'2" tops. Almost banging my head on it as I walk over to the desk. All the lighting inside is blue. Not like cheap LED that's so white it reads as blue, but not like police siren blue either, somewhere in between. Nobody at the desk. I ring the bell. My hand is literally still on the ringer when the door behind the desk opens. Skinny little blonde fella in a Holiday Inn shirt steps out, smiling at us. Hey, you don't happen to have any rooms open, do you? Still smiling, the guy looks back and forth between me and my GF. His smile widens a little. Rooms, he says. Almost slurs. Man, WTF. How did I pick the one hotel in this state that has no vacancies and a strung-out clerk? Yes, I do have a rooms for you, he says. Sweet relief. He looks at my GF. Do you need a rooms as well? I tell him 1 room will be fine for the 2 of us. Very well, 1 rooms. While he pokes at the keyboard, I grab my driver's license and a credit card and slide them across the counter to him. He's taking forever to process the transaction. GF asks him if there's anywhere nearby to grab some dinner. He tells her that if we continue down the road for another few miles, we'll find a gas station, the town proper, and a place to eat your dinners. Okay, you weirdo, just give me the room keys. Send GF up to the room, run back out to the cars to grab our suitcases. Notice all the license plates on the other cars are from Iowa. Weird, so it's all locals staying here. Maybe there's a water park nearby or something. Almost back to the hotel door when I realize that there are literally only 3 different kinds of cars in the entire parking lot. F-150, Chevy Malibu, old Chevy Trailblazers. All different colors, all different years, but I swear to God there were 3 different model cars in that parking lot. That's it. Must have been 80 or 100 cars in the lot, and every single one was an F-150, Malibu, or Trailblazer. Back inside, heading up to the room, 3rd floor. Decide to take the elevator because I'm not hoofing her 400-pound suitcase up the stairs. Huh, weird. Elevator has buttons for floors 6 to 14. Building is 4 stories max. GF is sitting at the foot of the bed, about to tell her that every hillbilly in Sawtelle seems to be generationally obligated to buy one of 3 different types of car, and that the elevator will apparently blast you through the roof if you want. She cuts me off. I want to go get some dinner pronto. Back to traipsing all over the hotel, but okay, I'm pretty hungry too. Head back down to the cars. I have to repack some shit to free up the passenger seat, but she doesn't want to take 2 cars for dinner. Heading deeper into the cornfield, allegedly towards the town. Children of the corn and Slipknot jokes abound. Drive past a few long unpaved driveways that lead off into more cornfields, presumably old farmhouses back in there. Sun is starting to set, and it's hard to make much of anything else out. It's quiet for a few minutes, and I'm starting to doubt if we're ever going to find a place to eat. GF turns to me and asks kind of softly, "Did you see anybody else at the hotel?" I think for a second. Nope. Neither did I. Isn't it weird with all those cars? Did you hear anybody even? I don't think I even heard anybody. Starting to get the heebie-jeebies. Contemplate telling her about the cars all being the same, but decide against it. Spin some bullshit about how all the other hotel guests are probably out at some local bounce castle park or water slide or some bullshit. Doesn't really explain why their cars are all still there. Finally see a restaurant up ahead. As we get closer, I realize it's a Friendly's. Weird, I thought that was a New England thing. GF is super sentimental for Friendly's, and immediately forgets about the spooky ghost hotel as she starts rambling about what flavor fribble, that is, milkshake, she's gonna get. 3 other cars in the parking lot. Late model F-150, red. Early 2000s Malibu, gray. Early 2000s Trailblazer, black. Head inside, there's a few other tables of people. Realize that the thrumming from the substation is gone. Must finally be far enough away from it. Old lady hobbles over and seats us. GF is beaming as she pours through the menu, rambling about which items are best, etc. I start easing up a little bit, feeling more at ease being back in the land of the living, even if it is kind of quiet in here and it smells like a bottle return. Old lady waitress comes back to take our order. I get a hamburger and a Coke. GF gets a strawberry fribble and some onion rings. GF asks the octogenarian waitress if there's anything special going on in town. It seems there's a lot of people at the hotel, mumbles something indiscernible in reply and shuffles back towards the kitchen. Bullshitting, killing time, waiting on our food, laughing at how this funky little corner of the Twilight Zone has the same name as the spot we're moving to. If Sawtelle in Los Angeles is as bad as this, we're just turning around and getting back on the highway heading east. Waitress reappears with our food, starts setting plates down. Absolutely baffled by the shit that she is on my plate. There's a frozen patty, with a little wax paper circle on one side of it, on one side of the plate, and a sesame seed bun, still closed, on the other side, with a bunch of ketchup drizzled all over the top of the bun. Look across at what this dingbat is setting down in front of my GF, trying to pick my jaw up off the floor. Bowl of chopped raw onions with another hamburger bun torn up into little pieces tossed on top of them, and a cupful of what looked like half-chewed strawberries with milk poured over the top of them. My brain is literally unable to process what the hell is going on. Are they trying to haze out-of-towners? Have we offended Methuselah in some way? GF looks like she's about to cry, is sputtering, "Wait, what is this?" Waitress is looking back and forth between the food and the two of us. Is this not what you wanted? I start looking around at the other tables, realize none of them are eating or drinking or really doing anything at all. Just sitting, staring at each other, murmuring. I tell the waitress that we are leaving, grab GF's hand, dragging her out of the restaurant. Look back over my shoulder as I push the exit door open. Heart immediately drops down through my balls. The 3 other tables of people are literally frozen, mouths half open, hands reaching out in paralyzed gestures. Top of 4th gear before I was out of the parking lot. Told GF we would not be staying the night in Sawtelle, Iowa. Get back to the hotel. Substation humming is almost unbearably loud. Put her in her car, tell her to lock the doors. I speed well back into the hotel, jog up the stairs to the 3rd floor, grab our shit, run back down. Front desk weirdo is nowhere to be seen. Race back out into the parking lot, throw our bags in my passenger seat, peel back out onto I-80, called GF as soon as we were on the highway, trying to calm one another down. Decided there must have been some towny conspiracy to spook us out. Drove about 20 more miles, hit a town called Altoona. Pulled off, found a room at a sparsely occupied La Quinta, and went to bed hungry. Finished our trip without further issue. Checked my credit card statement a day or 2 after we arrived in LA. Never got charged for that night at the Holiday Inn in Sawtelle. A couple days after we finished moving into our apartment in Los Angeles, we met up with some friends who had moved out here a few years back. Of course, they asked us all about the trip out, and we regaled them with all the weird, creepy shit that happened in Sawtelle, Iowa. They wanted to see some pictures of the place, especially the friendlies in the substation, so I fired up Google Maps to show them. Small problem though, a town called Sawtelle, Iowa doesn't exist. No such place. I hopped on the friendlies store locator and New York is as far west as they go. It was 3 years ago and we escaped unscathed. I'm not totally positive that the town doesn't exist, at least in some form or fashion. Maybe some kind of electromagnetic, I don't know, wave scrambled my brain or trashed my recollection of the town's name, or my ability to read the sign. I recognize that that sounds insane. Probably is insane. I just don't think that this could have been a real corporeal place that phased out of existence. But I don't think it was a shared delusion either. If I had been alone, I'd probably chalk everything up to a little sleep deprivation and emotional exhaustion on my part, mixed with a little caginess about getting victimized by flyovers in the middle of a cornfield 1,500 miles away from home. Perhaps my above description of what happened to the other friendlies patrons was unclear. It wasn't like they snapped into fiendish, inhuman poses and twisted their faces into demonic, gaping grins. They all just sort of froze. Like if they were the animatronics on the It's a Small World ride at Disney, and the power to the park got cut. OP here. I related the events outlined in my original post here to a buddy of mine who is into some of the paranoid schizophrenic tier theories and philosophies that get posted on boards like /x/. He theorized that my experience here was further evidence of the Earth human consciousness being a simulation. He said that really sparsely populated places like the American Midwest and prairie states are basically left unloaded to save system memory until somebody tries to enter. I guess sort of like how a video game needs to pause and load up the next area every so often. He thinks that, essentially, we weren't expected to get off that exit, whatever the hell that means. And the simulation was scrambling to write and load a unique town, and combined a bunch of half-baked / half-right elements. Really not sure what I make of all that. I'm a normal Catholic boy. Don't believe any of that navel-gazing shit about the whole world being a computer simulation, or a dream of a brain in a jar, etc. etc. But it does really neatly explain what the setting felt like. Virtually everything was at least slightly wrong, from the lighting and ceiling height of the hotel to the smell of the friendlies. Legitimately smelled 100% like the bottle return room at a supermarket or something. Of course, other things were super duper wrong, like the food we were served and the fact that we did not see a single other person. NPC, if you'll indulge me that. Out on the roads in town, in either of the parking lots, etc. We only really saw people when it was like, necessary for them to be there. Except the other diners in the friendlies, I guess. Maybe the computer was trying to save on memory by only drawing up a few different kinds of car.
Be me. Fresh from Zeta Reticuli. Got my first job. Because of the Greater Treaty with some no-name xeno-organics, we have to provide them free electromagnetic power. What, you really thought coal and hydro and nuclear made enough electricity for billions of people? There's just no way that's possible. Our graviton reactor facility is in an empty field with a fake town built to hide us from these apes. Get a job as an actor. All those years at the Zeta Reticuli Academy, and I'm assigned as an actor. One day, 2 sentients stumble in, barely fit under the ceiling like the barbarian giants they are. Try my best to speak their primitive language. Direct them to the fake restaurant. Quickly take my flying saucer over. Dress up as an elderly American female. Don't want them to poke around and then deal with memory wipes, the probe, DNA sampling. The paperwork is a pain. Devilish. Literally chew up this monkey's food and regurgitate it before serving. Is this not what you wanted? Thank God for those human language classes in Zeta High School. They piss their pants and flee. Notice the holograms have all paused. God damn it, my boss was remote viewing me. He knows I didn't probe and mind wipe them. Lose my job.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentexts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.